Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
It is 2 days before Thanksgiving as we are recording this, which means y'all just celebrated Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. How was Thanksgiving? Did you have any good Black Friday sales? Did you get some good deals?
Yes.
Cyber Monday, did you rack up? No? Okay.
Yes, tell us all that. I don't know. My brain just turned off and was like, I have no idea how to have a conversation. What do you
Mhm.
say in response to someone
Yeah.
else saying things? Yeah, let us know about your Thanksgiving if you are American, because if you're Canadian, y'all already had Thanksgiving like a month
Mm-hmm.
ago. Um, and I don't know if any other countries have like a Thanksgiving type holiday, you
Yeah, if
know?
you're Canadian, also let us know what you eat on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Like, do you have your traditional Thanksgiving meal or
Yeah, that is true. Because
something else?
I don't know what Canadians have for
I could
Thanksgiving.
Google it, but I want you to tell me.
Yes. Yes, we love all the Thanksgiving foods, as I'm pretty sure we've talked about for the last however many Thanksgivings we have been doing this
Mm-hmm.
podcast. But Thanksgiving food is delicious.
Yeah, I already had a Friendsgiving last night that was
Nice.
chef's kiss, very good. Um, And yeah, I can't wait for more Thanksgiving food. Just honestly, I love it.
Yeah, we are hosting this year, and I was telling Courtney right before we started recording that my husband has his little like handwritten spreadsheet situation where he's like mapped out all the ingredients for everything he's making and what time he needs to make everything so that it can all like line up. And he put a lot of planning into it. And as a type A person who is married to his type B person, I'm very proud of him.
Hmm. He's making plans for the group. He's planning out meals.
Who
Who
is
is he?
he? Who is he? Look at that personal growth over the last
I
just
know.
like 12 fucking years, you know? It's he has arrived.
He's finally there.
We were talking with my aunt a few weeks ago. I can't remember what it was about, but like something came up and he was like reciting like Romeo and Juliet. And she's like, wow, like he even recites poetry. She's like, where do you find someone like this? And I was like, you snag them when they're young and dumb, and then you mold them into this, okay?
Hmm.
Like, he didn't come this way, okay? We've
Yeah.
morphed into this over many, many years.
It also helps to find a scrappy one. That's what I call Kevin. Like
Yes.
he lived on his own. He was super,
Yup.
super broke, super poor. So he knows how to pay bills.
Yup.
He knows I don't really know if I want to say, I mean, he knows how to budget, but I just meant like he understands if there's money not in the account. It's just not
Yeah.
going to come out of nowhere.
Those basic life
Sometimes,
skills that you should know.
yeah, sometimes when you're like coddled by your parents a little too much and then you get on your own, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have those years of being like, money ain't
Yeah.
there. And then he knows how to do basic cleaning. Sometimes it's not up
Mm-hmm.
to my standard, but he knows how to do it basically.
Yep. Yep.
How to survive on his own. So,
That's true. Those are some important points. That
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
get them when they're poor. Then they'll
Yes.
appreciate you when they're middle class. I guess we're middle class.
When they're slightly above poor.
Slightly above poor. I'm not going to say rich. I'm not going to pretend like me and Kevin are rich over here, but
Oh man.
according to the government, we are.
That's according to the government, everybody's rich. I
I
mean,
know. According to the government, we got a lot of money. And I'm like,
yeah. I don't know where it all goes though, but
where? Where? What do you mean? But
oh boy. Okay. Well, I guess we're just gonna dive on into this episode. Like we're about to dive on into some Thanksgiving food in like
mm-hmm.
36 hours. So
Yeah. Yes. And of course, I decided to do an espresso, and it is the week that my voice is kind of going out. So
oh no.
hopefully it's more sultry right now and not vocal fry, but
It sounds great to me,
to
but
be determined. Better than it was yesterday. Okay. So our sources this week are a lot of articles from the Beacon Journal, just quite a few, like five to be exact. An NBC News article, an obituary. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say the funeral home's name because I don't know how to pronounce it. CourtTV.com article and the podcast Killer Instinct, Sydney Powell pleading insanity. And this is not the Trump lawyer, Sydney Powell. So don't be fooled. It's not her. This is not about trying to overturn an election. So don't worry.
A lot of people clicked on this episode thinking it was one thing, and they have now trickled off. So y'all are still here.
This is like a little bit of a lesser known one. And every time I Googled it, it was like, did you mean Sidney Powell? And I'm like, nope, not that one.
Like, no, I didn't actually.
Okay. So on March 3rd, 2020, officers respond to the 1900 block of Scudder Drive for a welfare check around 1 p.m. And when they arrived, they found 50-year-old Brenda Powell with life-threatening wounds, and she was transported to Cleveland Clinic, Akron General, where she was later pronounced dead. Her daughter, 19-year-old Sidney Powell, was also found with minor injuries, and she was taken to Summa Akron Hospital for treatment. So it's kind of the scene we have here is two injured people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one that died, but still. So Brenda was born on March 19th, 1969 in Salem, Ohio, and she had a degree in child life specialist from University of Akron. So she was married to Stephen Powell in November 1996, and she'd worked at Akron's Children's Hospital for 28 years. So she was a child life specialist in the hospital's Showers Family Center for Childhood Cancer and Blood Disorders. So kind of don't exactly know what she did as her job, but she was very involved in that center, basically.
I know that has to be a tough job. Like, I know child life specialist, like, it's kind of like social work, like specific to like children. So like you're trained in how to like provide that kind of comfort and giving them some kind of sense of like what is happening in like an age appropriate way.
Trying to like help them understand what they're going through.
Which again, a very, very tough job. Like that takes a very special type of person to be able to do that.
Yes. And she had two children of her own, Sydney and Andrew. And Stephen, Sydney, and Andrew were really the lights of her life. She loved her family. You know, they were pretty close. And she was extremely devoted to her job and the people she worked with. And she actually founded the oncology teen program at that hospital. And just comments on her obituary are filled with people talking about how positively Brenda impacted their lives, whether being friends, like fellow kids' parents, like her patients' families, like so many patients' families being like, when we were going through this, like Brenda helped us so much and she was so wonderful. So just like so many comments about how much of an impact Brenda had like in these people's lives. So Sydney went to high school at St. Vincent St. Mary High School and graduated in 2018. She was an honor student with great grades, and she played soccer and just a year of lacrosse. And she ended up going to University of Mount Union after graduating, and it was in Alliance, Ohio, which is pretty close to Akron still, which is like where her family lived, like a little bit of a smaller school. So she also got a scholarship due to her good grades. She chose to live on campus, and her roommate was her best friend from high school. So kind of, you know, you're getting to like go away to college, but not too far. Like you're not moving across the country, and it's kind of a smaller, and you get to be with your high school best friend. Like a pretty good transition into college.
Yeah, kind of getting your feet wet without just like taking the plunge.
Yeah, yeah, without like just moving somewhere to go to school that you know no one and no family around, just nothing. So Sydney really enjoyed her time at the university. Mount Union had like a parent-student portal where parents could like see the grades and access different things like tuition. So obviously students have to give permissions for the parents to see it because most students are 18, they are adults. So you could like deny permission, but also a lot of times they probably left it open because that's also where the money part happened.
Exactly. They're like, yeah, I need you to take care of that part. So
yeah. Okay, I'll let you in here. So in early 2020, Stephen tried to access the portal to pay the tuition, but couldn't get in. So Steve reached out to Sydney and was like, do you know why this isn't working? And she's like, oh, it's probably just like a technical error. You know, it's probably just messing up. I'll talk to them. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. So Stephen's kind of getting worried. And he's like, I really don't want to be late on payment. Like, you're late on payment, you might not be able to go to your classes, get your grades, being a concerned parent. So on March 3rd, he calls and asks them for access so he can pay tuition or at least like know the amount that's due. So on this call, Mount Union told Stephen that Sydney was no longer enrolled as a student.
Oh, interesting.
So he's quite shocked because she's still back at school. You know, school started back in January and it's March 3rd and she's not a student. So
Yeah.
very confused as to like, where did she go and how has she not been in classes? Like, but Mount Union wouldn't tell him how long she hadn't been enrolled as a student. So he doesn't know, has it been all semesters? Has it just been recently? Like, what's going on? So what actually happened is Sydney had been academically suspended in December 2019 after she'd failed 3 of her 4 classes.
Yikes. That'll do it.
Yeah, not a good semester. But students at Mount Union are actually allowed to enroll the next semester if they choose. So she was suspended like the spring 2020 semester, but she could have re-enrolled in fall 2020. And at Mount Union, when you re-enroll, you get all your credits back and can retake all the classes you failed to raise your GPA.
Okay.
So it's obviously not great, but it's not detrimental because it's like you have to take a semester off, you come back, you retake your classes, you continue on. You know, it's not like she was completely kicked out of the school, lost all the credits, couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But Sydney just kept attending classes and sorority meetings. And so the school was like kind of confused. They're like, why are you still coming here?
Like why would you choose to keep going to classes when you're not getting anything out of
like,
this?
You're
not getting a
academically
grade.
suspended. Why are you here? So they offered like to help her tell her parents because they're like, maybe she's just scared to tell her parents. But she told them that they did know. Obviously, that's a lie. And she also told them they couldn't help her move out because they were on vacation. Obviously, another lie. So Sydney finally moved out on February 24th and paid cash to stay in hotels until the March 3rd phone call. So Stephen actually made the phone call at work. And at this time, he could see that like Sydney was at their home. And this was pretty unusual because Sydney would normally be at school. So even though the school and their home were like less than an hour away, Sydney stayed on campus except for big breaks like Christmas break. So she didn't even really come home on the weekends. Like she would just stay permanently at school because she enjoyed it so much. So for this like middle of the week, her to be home, kind of weird. So Stephen was like, you know what? Perfect. I can ask Sydney about it. So he leaves work and goes to the house around 11:30 a.m. and asked her about the school situation. He was pretty understanding of the situation. He just kind of wanted to know what was going on, like what happened, you know, like talk to me about it. So Sydney was saying she felt lost. She didn't really know what her academic goals were. And she just felt like she was behind and like didn't know what she wanted. Like all her friends seemed to know like what they wanted to do career-wise and their degrees. And she's like, I just don't know what I want. Like I feel like I'm falling behind everyone else. Having just a little life crisis. And so Steven's like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. We're going to work it out. It's just a bump in the road. So he's not like screaming at her. I'm sure he's a little disappointed, a little like, why didn't you tell us? But not like flipping his shit on her, basically.
Yeah. He's not like threatening to kick her out and have nothing to do with her.
Yeah. So Stephen thought Brenda could really help Sydney out since her career is working with children and teens. He's like, this is Brenda's life work. She's going to know what to say. So he had told Brenda before he left for the house about it. So when he was still at work, he'd called Brenda, told her. So Brenda chose to leave work early when she knew Sydney was home so they could talk. So Stephen left the house to go back to work and Brenda showed up to the house. So Brenda did tell Stephen at 12:15 that she was at the house. She then texted him at 12:36 saying she was waiting to hear back from the Mount Union Student Relation Program. And so Stephen texted back to tell Brenda to check about the scholarship to see if she would lose it because she had that scholarship based on her grades. It was like, is she going to, like, we need to ask all these follow-up questions. And he texted again about 10 minutes later, asked how their conversation went, but he didn't hear back. So I don't know why he had a police radio. I don't really know what his job was, but he apparently had a police radio and at work heard that someone had been dispatched to the house. So the welfare check was actually initiated by a 911 call that came from the University of Mount Union. So Brenda had been on the phone with the student relation department when she went to the house. And the person at the university had been on the phone with Brenda when they heard like a loud scream and a loud thud. They heard more thuds, more screams. So they start like calling out for her, but don't get an answer. And they even said on the line, like, we're going to call the police if you don't respond. Cause it's like, it sounds like you just randomly got attacked and like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So they said after they said that, it went quiet. And the voice on the other end answered and was like, yes, this is Brenda. But like, they're like, that's not Brenda.
Yeah.
So they basically are like, Sydney, I think this is you. Like, this is not Brenda. And then the line disconnected. So that's like one report, is that the phone call happened the whole time. Other reports do sometimes say that like the phone disconnected earlier and they called back and Sydney answered pretending to be Brenda. So it seems more likely it's like the first one where the line kept going, but just in case you look it up and see two reports. Either way, after this happened and the line was disconnected, he tried to call back twice with no answer. So Steven starts trying to call like multiple times because he's like heard about this dispatch. So only Sydney answered, and she was crying, and she said there had been a break-in in the house. So police arrived at the back of the house, and they did see a broken window and blood. So Sydney was in the house with blood on her hands, and she was hysterically saying like someone broke into the house. She said someone walked in right after Brenda got home, and they forced Sydney to leave. She said Brenda told her to follow instructions, so she just left and then came back and just found her mother stabbed to death. So she's like, I just walked out, left like they told me to, came back, saw this. So the house was a mess when police arrived. There was broken glass from the window, pieces of furniture flipped over, like blood smudges all over the house. And again, Sydney had blood on her hands. So police found it unusual in general, especially if she left the house during the attack. So Sydney said it was when she came back in and touched her mom that like the blood got in her hands, but they're like, it seemed like so much more blood than just like touching someone like that. And that's kind of when they started to find like cuts on Sydney's hands. And police also did eventually discover the window had been broken from the inside of the house, not the inside of the house. So police don't really believe this intruder theory. There's not a lot of evidence for it, but also, why would you just leave and stand in the driveway and come back?
Yeah.
Like you're told to leave. Like you're not going to run to a neighbor's house, call for help. Like you're not going to do anything. You're just going to go stand outside.
Yeah.
And then come back in.
Yeah.
Like,
doesn't add up.
I don't think you're that good at following instructions. You got kicked out of school for not following your classes. So it's pretty clear to everyone, Sydney is making up this story. So this is when police start to build the timeline that we kind of discussed earlier, where, you know, they find out about her being unenrolled from the school. Is unenrolled a word?
I think it's disenrolled, but I'm also not sure if that's a word. That's the word we used to use when I worked in like preschool, like admission. Yeah. But I don't even know if that's
neither of them like sound right. You know what I mean? Like, neither sound good. Anyway, no longer enrolled.
Jinx.
There we go. So Akron Police Lieutenant Michael Miller said no one was home besides Brenda and Sydney when they arrived. And neighbors were pretty shocked at a disturbance at the Powell home. Like one neighbor even said, like, I don't really know them very well, but like I frequently saw them together. The parents were very involved in the kids' lives. Like this wasn't the house on the street. People were like, I know something's coming with that house because they're always fighting and they're always, you know what I mean? It was very like unsuspecting. So Sydney was taken to this Summa Akron hospital to treat her wounds and then taken to jail once the hospital released her. She was released on bond on March 5th. And in the affidavit, it said the two were in a verbal argument that turned physical. And during the confrontation, Sydney is accused of fatally stabbing and cutting Brenda. Sydney's family was in support of her release, like on bond, and she was granted a $25,000 bond with maximum pretrial supervision, which includes weekly in-person check-ins and a mental health evaluation.
And so I'm guessing her dad paid the bond?
I believe so. Yeah. The family situation of it gets real interesting.
Okay.
It's real interesting.
I'm ready.
It's going to be a good discussion when we get there.
Okay, great.
So then on April 20th, 2020, she was indicted on more charges. So at this hearing, she was charged with murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. And then her bond was set at 10% of $500,000. She was again released on bond. So COVID times, we know everything kind of got delayed around here. So we're going to kind of jump 2 years in the future. So on February 8th, 2022, she changed her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. So this was after her psychological evaluation, and the prosecution was expected to request a second medical examination. They say that when police arrived, Sydney was collapsed at the end of the driveway. Her eyes were rolled in the back of her head. She was clawing at the asphalt to the point where her fingers were bleeding. Her lawyer's she was in shock and not responding to audio stimuli. So they're claiming her reaction is based on a mental health break. Also, that podcast I referenced earlier did play audio from a body cam of the officer at the scene, so you can hear Sydney responding. So she is responding. She's not nonverbal.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Okay.
So Sydney's father, Stephen, also made a plea to the court, and he begged prosecutors to not move forward with murder charges against his daughter for killing his wife. He believed she was under an episode of psychosis, and Stephen said, "I don't know why we're doing this. This isn't what anyone wants here. I don't know how she can handle it. I don't know how I can handle it. I'm trying to keep my family together." And he also said he did not believe that this is what Brenda would have wanted. So...
okay.
Yeah, which I'm well, your daughter killed Brenda, so I don't think we know what Brenda wants.
I'm waiting for more information before I share my thoughts. So
yeah,
we'll come back around to that.
Yes, we'll circle back. So her trial started on September 7th, 2023. So prosecutors say that Sydney stabbed her mother with a steak knife 30 times in the neck and hit her repeatedly with a cast iron skillet.
With a steak knife? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It's a lot.
It's
a lot.
Not that it would be better if it was a sharper knife, but a steak knife, that's...
Yeah.
That's some pure rage right there.
Mm-hmm. So the prosecution did have a medical expert testify Sydney was sane when she murdered Brenda. They say that she was not in full-blown psychosis in the week leading up to her murder. But Sydney's lawyers are still arguing temporary insanity. They're saying that Sydney says she only has flashes of that day, hearing voices, crying, feeling the need to get away. She said she remembers hearing voices in her head saying worthless, loser, kill yourself. So Dawn Malarsick, who's Sydney's attorney, however, said 3 psychologists found that Sydney suffered from schizophrenia and had a psychotic break on the day she killed her mother. So they're saying she's having delusions, hearing voices, lost control. They said she is getting treatment and doing better. She was actually living with her maternal grandmother, Elizabeth Brown, and said with tweaks to her medication, she's been doing well. So...
okay.
Yeah, but the only thing I don't understand, and I'm not saying I don't believe or not believe that she had a mental health issue. My only thing is how, besides what Sydney is telling them, can they comment on how she was feeling up until the murder?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you're not seeing someone regularly,
who
knows that maybe you have schizophrenia, maybe or whatever. Because, it is the 2020s. Sydney could just be making all of this up because she knows that's what she can say.
Yeah. How do you determine what someone's behavior and thoughts were in that week, other than what they have shared with you, which obviously they have a motive for sharing certain thoughts with you.
Her parents obviously had not seen her leading up to it. She was living in hotels leading up to it. So she wasn't even living at college with her best friend anymore. I'm not saying I don't believe that. I just don't understand how 3 psychologists can confidently make this declaration.
We know how it is with attorneys where both sides are going to find an expert that agrees with their side and will present that to a jury. Are we going to come back to her mental health, or is this kind of going in a different direction at this point before I share my thoughts? I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
A little bit, but not like deep dive.
Okay. I'll start talking, and if I need to save it for later, just shut me up and let me know.
Okay.
Okay. So a couple of thoughts. So as far as her father being, I don't want to say perfectly okay with the situation, obviously, because I'm sure he's not, but wanting her home, not wanting her prosecuted, so on and so forth. I'm like, do you know that your daughter has a history of mental health problems?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you truly know that, like, this is what this is, and that's why you don't want her, like, locked up, because you have seen this in the past? But because that's my first thought. Because I'm like, if this has never happened before, if she's never had any kind of sign of a mental illness, what makes you think that that's all it is? Because that would be bizarre that this was the first appearance of said mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, schizophrenia does typically start in your late teens, early 20s. Like, that's when you develop these symptoms. She has been away for some time, isn't really coming home a lot. So it could be that she's having these symptoms that they don't know about.
We do have testimony from the roommate best friend coming up.
Okay. Also, the last thing I want to throw out that, again, may come back in a minute, but schizophrenics are typically not violent. They can be, of course, like anyone can be, but it's not like a symptom of that mental illness. Anyway, I will listen to the rest of the story now. I just had to share those thoughts as they were coming into my brain.
Yeah. So Sydney's college roommate and longtime best friend, Lauren Curry, also testified. She said Sydney was bubbly and charismatic. That hard was. Is that how you say that? Charismatic? No.
Charismatic.
Why can't I say that word? Oh, Lord. Anyway, she said she was those two things. And that she didn't notice any major difference in Sydney's behavior leading up to March 5th. However, she also said Sydney hadn't even told her about her academic suspension until late February when she was moving out of the dorms. So she didn't so nobody's knowing besides Sydney and the school about the academic suspension, but also was saying, like, I didn't notice her, like,
acting differently,
maybe talking to herself, like hallucinations, like anything. Like, she didn't notice any big difference.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of why I'm like, if she's getting this building up to this psychotic break, wouldn't Lauren be seeing stuff too?
Yeah.
But I mean, Lauren also has classes and in school and is doing stuff, but she does live with her. So I feel like if you saw something and you've known her for so long that you're like, you'd notice something. Yeah,
that's what jumped out to me too. It's like, okay, it's not just a roommate who sees you all the time, who has this is your best friend from high school. Like, this person knows you. This person has been around you before. This person, I mean, it's probably paying enough attention to you because you're friends. It's not like you're just a roommate, like, I'm sure.
And I mean, Sydney was still going to sorority meetings and classes. It's not like she was holed up in her room. Like, they were probably still doing many things together.
Yeah, like, I would think you would see some of these signs if that was what was really happening. Like, if she truly was at the onset of the schizophrenia diagnosis, you would think that there would be some kind of visible signs that someone around her would have noticed. Yeah. So, and Lauren said she last saw her on March 2nd. She said she didn't seem distressed in any way or notice any change in behavior. She did testify that Sydney suffered with anxiety in high school, and the anxiety did get worse in college, and she didn't do very well handling the stress, which could probably lead to her failing the classes. But I think that happens a lot with high achievers, especially in high school. You're so used to getting perfect grades and being really great academically. And then sometimes college is just really hard. And it's kind of hard to deal with being in a sorority and doing college things and then doing this new freedom that you're all on your own. Like, it is hard to balance. Yeah, definitely. It was also revealed during the trial some of Sydney and Brenda's text messages. Mostly they seemed like normal mother-daughter interactions. There was a text from Brenda sent on February 25th that said, "Why do I feel like you're scamming me? Just remember you need the grades to keep your scholarship." So I guess maybe she had some feeling. And Sydney responded, "My grades are good. Thank you very much." Again, remember, she's not been in classes for 2 months at this point. So I guess her grades are good because there are none. Yeah, she's not enrolled. Her grades are great. Yeah.
So Sydney was very emotional during the whole trial and cried most of the time. Like anytime you see any video picture of her from trial, she's just like sobbing. She did even request on September 14th to be excused from the courtroom, and the judge actually granted her permission. So she was allowed to not be in the courtroom for part of the trial, I guess because she was so emotional.
Mm-hmm.
The defense did end up having 4 mental health professionals testify about Sydney's state of mind at the time and that she did not understand what she was doing when she killed her mother. So the prosecutor's response to this was in regards to how she made up the story of an intruder and breaking the window. So this is kind of pointing to like, you are understanding the ramifications of what you're doing. Like, I truly believe a lot of time when we see people with mental health issues who kill, like sometimes they'll just be sitting there with like the knife still in their hand because they're just
because they truly don't realize that they did something wrong.
So she broke a window, she told this whole intruder story, all of that. So they're like, you would not do those things to like cover up what you did unless you knew what you were doing. So on September 20th, 2023, Sydney Powell was found guilty of killing Brenda in March 2020. So even though they had 4 mental health professionals, jury didn't really buy it. And I think it is just because she covered it up.
Yeah.
She covered it up. Like, that points to knowing what you did was wrong. That's, So jurors convicted her on 2 counts of murder. One that means like purposefully causing a death, and the other that involves like causing a death as a result of a felonious assault. And she was also found guilty of felonious assault and tampering with evidence. So she will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Her defense team do plan to appeal the conviction. So, I mean, as you're listening to this, yes, like she was literally convicted 2 months ago. So there might be quite a few updates coming out on this one. But on September 28th, the judge did sentence her to 15 years to life in prison. Prosecution kind of wanted to tack on more years. Defense was asking just for 15 years. So, but yeah, so that is just the crazy story of the murder of Brenda Powell, because Sydney was scared of her finding out that she wasn't in college anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Wow.
It's a lot. And this is another one I found because of a TikTok that was sent to me by my coworkers. Because it was just a girl being like, why is nobody talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, this is happening. I mean, I didn't hear anything about this.
Yeah. No, me neither. Which I get why we didn't hear about it like when it happened, because, the world was a little preoccupied with other stuff. But yeah, I mean, this was 2 months ago. Like, that's crazy that, and I mean, maybe we're just, under a rock and other people are like, yeah, obviously I've been following this. But yeah, I had no idea, had never heard of this case, and just the brutality of it. Like,
brutal. 30 stab wounds, and like was hitting her over the head with a cast iron skillet.
Like, this isn't a case of like, there was a gun in the house and I overreacted and it was a one-time thing. Like, that is a brutal, vicious, over and over assault that at some point your brain could be like, what the fuck am I doing? Let me stop doing this.
Which I also wonder too, people with schizophrenia or mental health issues who maybe do commit crimes like this, are they always like this brutal? Like, do they, like, what is like the statistics of how it usually happens? Like, is it just a quick thing? Is it this kind of over?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I believe she was probably going through some shit because she's embarrassed that she's academically suspended. She's anxious. She's like, her whole lie is like crumbling down on her. But I don't truly believe she was in this like psychotic episode and had no idea what she was doing.
Yeah, I don't think that she didn't know what she was doing, especially like you said, because she did go to these lengths to like come up with a story, to break a window, to like try to make it look like it was a different scenario other than what it was. But at the same time,
and if it was a psychotic break, why did Steven get to leave and Brenda didn't?
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I don't think anyone who's mentally stable could murder their mother over their grades. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something like, and not that like it's something that excuses you from a murder charge because, again, like, you knew what you were doing, but like, what is happening in your brain that makes this seem like a reasonable outcome to this scenario?
I feel like we hear about this a lot. I feel like there's another one I know of where somebody like didn't want their parents to find out. They'd like flunked out of school and like murdered them. And I'm like, why?
Like, how is this better? How is this a better scenario in your brain?
Yeah. It was wild to me too, like her family's response to it. I guess that is their way of like coping with the fact that they lost a loved one and someone in their family did it. But like the fact that she was staying like with her maternal grandmother, like,
yeah, that's why I was wondering, like, if she had a history of mental illness that they were aware of, so they knew, like, okay, this is what happened, but she's on medication, like, she'll be fine, she won't do this again. But that's not the case. So how do you know she's not going to do this again? Like,
yeah, because all they were really saying was like, she got the mental health evaluation and like with the treatment, she's been doing better. But that doesn't mean it's like schizophrenia. That could just be the anxiety, the depression, the whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite the story.
A lot.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really know where that was going, but that was yeah, that was a wild story. That being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So what I'm gonna do, because obviously the week we're recording this, it's the week of Thanksgiving. It's all about being thankful. I'm gonna have 2 fucking perks of the week.
I love it. You know I love a double perk of the week.
A double perk. My first perk of the week is that this weekend, my brother-in-law and his girlfriend came and stayed with us. And it was such a fun time because I just absolutely love seeing them. They live like 8 hours away, so we only get to see them like ever so often. But normally, like, we're going up there, going on vacation. So it was so nice for them to come here and like show them Knoxville, like go to a few of our favorite places, take them to a UT game, got to experience their first like SEC game. Like,
yeah,
just a really fun weekend. And I always just, especially around Thanksgiving, love spending time with family. So,
and I selfishly, to insert myself into your perk of the week, like I do. I got to enjoy getting to spend time with them as well, because I've only ever like spent time with them around like wedding activities where there's, you know, a ton of people and things are busy and, you know, whatever. So like I actually got to like really hang out with them for the first time. So I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. Like get to see them, kind of get to know them, like not just, you know, in a group setting. Yeah,
exactly.
So that is my first perk of the week. And my second perk of the week is, guys, I fucking ran a half marathon. I think we talked about it before, how we were going to do a half marathon. I don't know how much I talked about on the podcast. But basically we had this idea that we were going to do it, and I signed up and I begrudgingly trained for it and I ran it. And, you know, I had a lot of anxiety leading up to the half marathon. I mean, I think as people do, I think that's a normal reaction.
Absolutely.
But it was a smaller race and I was like, oh, what if I'm last? What if I'm this? And I was last. I'll tell you that right there. But you know what that means? I means I got really, really good finish line pictures by the photographer. Yes. I had all my friends and family there cheering me on. Like, everyone was so kind to me, like at the water stations as I'm running through, and they're like, no, like, you're doing great. Like, it would take me forever if I tried to do this. And at the end of the day, I did it. So that's all that matters.
You beat everyone who didn't even show up. Okay.
That's true. So. I technically didn't come in last because there was 4 people that didn't finish. So
hopefully those people are okay. But yes, you did not finish.
I hope
last.
They're okay. But I did finish it. There were many times I thought about maybe I should just throw in the towel, but I didn't. I finished it, and I even they so kindly named it the Perseverance Prize. Because you know what? I ran longer than anyone else that day. We ran the same distance, but I ran longer.
Yes, she did. I also love how as soon as the guy walked away, you just like turned to us and you're like, did I just get a loser prize?
But honestly, I love that they did that. Like, I saw that on like a running group we're in, where there was like a joke kind of trophy of like it was like a trail run, and there's like last ass on the trail or something like that, something funny. Yeah. You know, and so I do like that they were like giving that to somebody who did it, you know, that people think to you know.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so a lot of that anxiety, I mean, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of hills. But I did it and I finished it. So
also you left out that we got like 30 bunches of bananas. Okay.
That is true. At my Friendsgiving last night, I was giving everyone away bananas. And I gave bananas to my friend Alex, like when we first got there, and he was like, okay, thank you. And he set them down. And then he was like going to leave and he was like getting his stuff. And I was like, don't forget your bananas. And he was like, okay. And then I saw him get the rest of his stuff and he like wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I was like, Alex, don't forget your banana.
Yeah, like the organizer just came up and gave us all of the bananas that were left over from the race because we were still there. So we all ended up with like 5 bunches, and there were like 6 groups of us.
It was funny because in the like group text we have like for the Friendsgiving, like I texted a picture. I was like, does anyone want bananas? Like I have a bunch of bananas. And John was like, you're the middle school girl math problem. Yes. And I was like, Courtney has 5 bunches of bananas. She gave 4 bunches to her friends. How many does she have left?
I'm also wondering, because Andrew was like, yeah, like we'll freeze them for like smoothies and whatever, no problem. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, are we even going to get to freeze these? Because we eaten these bananas. We've had so many bananas.
Oh, I need to eat some bananas, but yeah. So yeah, that is my perk of the week. Is I did it. I finished it. It's been like a huge thing coming up that's been a lot and a lot of anxiety for me, but running across that finish line into Jacqueline's arms with her holding my medal was it was a high for sure. I got the runner's high right then, right when I could finally stop.
Yes, I just have to say, I said it to you then and since then and whatever, but publicly on this platform for the whole world to know that I am just so fucking proud of you because you committed to this.
This is the first time we cry on this podcast together.
I was like, how many times have we had this conversation since then? And
I still cry every time I look at the pictures. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh man, the pictures, they are so wonderful. But we decided to do this together and you're like, yeah, I'm going to fucking do this. And you signed up and you have trained all these months, even when it was hard, and you showed up and you did the damn thing. And I knew you were worried about being last. And I was just hoping that even if you were, that the being able to finish it would like overshadow that, and that that wouldn't be a big deal because like you said, like you ran longer than anyone else that day. Like you had more opportunity to give up than anyone else that day and chose not to and kept going. Yeah. No matter what.
Yeah. So and like once I finished, even kind of like got to a point where I kind of knew like, there's nobody behind me. Like they're wrapping the shit up behind me, and I was just like, what, it doesn't matter because I will finish it. And that is all that matters. Like I will get across that finish line. I will say I did it. Never have to do it again if I don't want to.
Well before the cutoff, might I add. It wasn't like they were like, oh, well, the course is shutting down. You got to go. Like you were a full 30 minutes before the cutoff. Like you still had plenty of time. You could have taken more time than that if you wanted to.
Yeah. And it also, whoever designed that route at the end was just cruel because I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm at the finish line. They're like, go down to the end of that road and come back. And I was like, great. And then that woman started ringing that bell. And you're like, this woman who works there just like walked down and started ringing the bell at me. And I was like, whoo, because that was my problem with the route is every other like half marathon, even 5Ks I've done, there's people stationed who are like cheer people. Yeah. And they didn't have that. And that was really hard. So it was
like, very much just by yourself,
yourself on your own on a greenway. That's not the best greenway. So but you know what? I did it. And I'm very proud of myself. I'm very happy I did it. Have a little chafing issues. And once those fade, I know I'm going to be like very happy.
You're like the high will come back after that. It was funny at the end when like we knew you were coming and you were like right there and like, everyone's kind of like doing it. And I was just like, went up to the organizer and I was like, I'm just going to give her medal. Is that okay? And he was like, yeah, you get it, man. Go ahead. Like I was just like, I'm just gonna grab this and do this myself. Okay.
I'm the captain now. Thank you. I'm taking over.
He's just like, you go ahead, get in there. I was like, okay, thank you for your permission. I was gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it was 13.1's a lot.
It's a lot of miles.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Got to a point where I was like, should my heart rate be this high for this long? But I was like, it's okay. I'm fine. But
It's fine.
that's kind of why my voice is like this, because I screamed at the UT game and then
Yeah.
ran in the cold. So my throat's just like,
It's just
nah,
having quite the
girl,
time.
no. But she made it through. But yes, that's my double perk of the week is I did it. Like I told people I was gonna do it, and I fucking did it.
You fucking did it.
I did it. So
Yeah.
that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
What if I just talked about something completely unrelated and just like pretended like
So I
that
had
wasn't
this
even
really amazing coffee at Starbucks. Did you guys know the holiday drinks are back?
Obviously my perk of the week is also that Courtney ran this half marathon, that we did it together, but more so that Courtney did it. Like that's what
Jacqueline
I
was
care
just
about more in this.
she was about an average length movie ahead of me. She was a comedy ahead of me. She probably could have put on like a short little comedy and watched it before.
But no, like it was something that we were able to do together, and just like it was wonderful. And I already said all the things that I wanted to say, just now, but that was also my perk of the week, is that we got to experience this together, and then I got to experience this with you, and just be so proud of you because I love you.
Knowing me, did you ever think I would be running a half marathon with you, knowing who I am as a person?
No, never in a million years. But you did, and I'm so proud that you did.
We need
so the full marathon's next, right?
No.
Courtney closes the Zoom, just backs away.
I blocked Jacqueline on all social media platforms.
Start banging on your door. I'm still here.
We need someone to go back through all of our previous episodes and pull all the parts of me being like, I hate running. I'm never going to run. Running's the worst. Like all of that to then just get to this point of.
We like compile that montage with the video at the end. That's what we need to happen. So anyone who's good at that, make it happen for us, please.
Yeah. But yeah. And I just keep trying to say like how thankful I am that I have a body that allowed me to do that allowed me to push her to her limits. She got pushed.
But if I might add, more importantly, you have a brain and a mindset that allowed you to make your body do that, because that's the hardest part. True. Like it's all, I don't want to say it's all mental, because obviously like there's some physical capability to it, but for the most part, it's mentally getting out there and knowing I got to run for like 2 damn hours straight and just like doing it over and over and over.
And that was the hard part, is I was training in the fall and there was college football and NFL football, and I had friends getting married, and I had a lot of stuff going on, like Halloween parties and all this. And I still did it. I still
did it.
Found the time. If maybe I shortened a run here and there, like I did, whatever, but I still did it. I trained enough to get me through that finish line.
Exactly. On that note, if you guys want to send Courtney your well wishes and congrats and all of that lovely stuff, tell us what you think about this case. Tell us what you had for Thanksgiving. What was the best dish? What was the dish that sucked that nobody wanted? If you're Canadian, what do you guys eat for Thanksgiving? All the things on all the places. It's in the show notes. Just Google us. We'll show up on all the places where we are. We are also on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where at some point in the very near future, Courtney and I need to record a bonus episode that I just realized, because that's coming out.
Yes, we do. I thought about that
this week. Yeah.
In 2 days. It's okay. We still have like a week and a half from recording,
It's fine.
Got a little bit of time.
We'll figure it out.
Thank God neither of us are traveling for Thanksgiving.
Yes, definitely. For the first time in like forever that neither of us are traveling for Thanksgiving, I feel like.
That's true, because last year you weren't.
I was still in Virginia last year. Did you travel last year?
I did travel last year.
Yeah, so I was home in Virginia, but you traveled. But
usually,
yeah.
There's usually one of us is gone somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
yeah, we're both here.
Yeah, we'll record that sometime soon. And hopefully you like that episode. It's what, you still have time to read The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. You have 2 days. You have 2 days to read it.
Just
really
stay up all
quick.
night. It's fine.
Get the audiobook. It's only 15 hours. It's like 2 work days.
Just put it on 2 times speed and it's like 8 hours. Great. Perfect. Perfect. I don't know if I said it is patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. I feel like I went off on a different story in the middle of that sentence. But in addition to that specific bonus episode, we also have like 30 something other bonus episodes and our Discord channel, and we got pins and stickers. We got lots of pins and stickers. So please let us know if you want some of them and come join us on Patreon so we can send them your way. And
I also wanted to give a shout out. I hope you're still listening to Michelle, who is my husband's boss, who I got to meet last week and was like, I hear your voice every week. Because like, Kevin went to a dinner. Yeah, Kevin went to a dinner. I was like, oh, you know, I hear all my Kevin stories. I hope you didn't cut it off just yet. I guess I'll know. And I'll give you another shout out next week if Kevin's like, she didn't say anything. But yeah, so I wish I had brought in a sticker to give to her. So next time Kevin's going in the office, she's getting a sticker. But it was funny too, because it was Kevin's like another boss that isn't like Kevin's direct, you know, it's another higher up. She was like, oh, you're the infamous, not the infamous Courtney, but she was like, oh, like I've heard so much about you or whatever. And she was like, I'm sorry, I haven't listened to your podcast yet. I'm like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was so funny too, because I'm like, oh my God, this is like Kevin's direct boss. And I just tell all these little stories on him. So
you're like going back in your head of everything you've ever said publicly about him, and you're like,
whoopsie, sorry, Kevin.
You know, it is what it is. We just speak in truth over here, okay?
Yeah, which also maybe should we bleep out the company name that my husband works for?
Probably, I will do that. I'll put a
little bleep. I'm thinking about it now because I'm like, I've never really said publicly where I work, so maybe I shouldn't out him like that. But you know who you are.
Exactly.
So sorry. And if you could give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on wherever you listen that has a rating. Also on Spotify, I don't know if you noticed, like on episodes, you can like leave little comments about that specific episode.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't really know how to view them, but I'll figure it out. But I did see that you could be like, you're listening to a specific episode, like you're listening to this episode, and you could be like, hey, I love my shout out. Or hey,
that's pretty cool.
Good job, Courtney, on your half marathon. Or hey, you pronounced something wrong. Anyway.
Or hey, these bitches would not stop fucking talking. Don't listen to this episode.
At least it's just on that episode and not on the full podcast review. But also, cool, yeah, also on YouTube, you can leave comments on each video. You can give us a thumbs up. You can subscribe, leave us nice comments, anything like that.
Yes.
But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.